Hello, hello. We're here again with Fielding Jezreel. And I love that you come back on for a special bonus episode so we can go ahead and talk about professional mentorship. And you were just on Fielding, your first time ever on a podcast. Love it. And that was episode 391, I believe. Yep, 391. So if you guys want more information about Fielding, definitely check out that podcast as well. But thank you for coming on to be able to talk about the Grand Professional Mentorship today and your experience in it. And just as a side note, everyone, Fielding Jezreel owns and CEO of Fielding or Jezreel Consulting. So definitely check out all of the links there. We'll have some information about that. But yeah, can you just talk a little bit about your business just to familiarize people who may not have heard episode 391?
Yeah, absolutely. So my business really started out of panic of leaving a really toxic job. And for the first couple of months, I didn't know what I was doing at all. I took work that people would give me, right? So I'm a little bit all over the place. I think I wrote an annual appeal that first year, right? So all of these sort of distinct fundraising activities, but in-house work had been primarily in grants. And so I knew that's where I wanted to grow my business. I knew I wanted to grow it in federal grants. And it took about 2 years for me to transition the vast majority of my work to federal. I started in 2016 and grant consulting wasn't quite as normal or hot as it is now. I think there was just like this huge boom in transition around COVID where suddenly you needed more contractors because organizations needed to be a little bit more nimble, and individuals, primarily moms, were like, wow, this is terrible. I can't function this way. But also I can work from home, right? And I can do this work really well. And I don't need someone else to employ me to do it. So I started a little bit before the boom, and I feel like there's been all of this infrastructure built up to support business owners. But the first few years I could have really used it, and I just didn't know about any of that infrastructure, right? So fast forward, I knew towards the end of 2023 that I wanted to get more into teaching, and potentially coaching other writers into the federal space. And so knowing that I wanted to transition my business a bit, and knowing how lonely and lost and frankly all of the mistakes I made in setting up my business initially, I wanted to avoid some of that, right? Fast track into something that just felt a little bit more easeful, a little bit less stressful, and certainly to have the support of someone who's gone through some of this in the past, right? So that was really the initial impetus for me to join the mentorship. Certainly that is what I got out of it, and certainly did help me through some moments where I thought, am I doing the right thing? And so that was initially why I joined, is just I wanted something new for my business, and I didn't want to do it alone, and I didn't want to make so many mistakes.
Right. And I know that, yeah, you've been able to set up this federal training. It's really awesome. And you're able to do that live last summer. So that was really cool in your hometown, right? And so it was really cool to see that pulling in different associations to be able to serve them. So how was that for you then, being able to get feedback on how to kind of lay that out and then running it and being successful?
Yeah. So I spent time with you one-on-one to really map out that process and sort of look at all the details. I am not, I would say, a natural salesperson. I built my business. One of the few intentional decisions initially with my business is that I wanted to be local and I wanted to be word of mouth, which meant I didn't have to do much marketing, right? I tapped friends and peers and colleagues in the sector and was like, hey, who needs me? And that's how I developed that first business. But I knew I had to do more marketing in order for the education program to sell. That was really critical. And I know now you have training in the mentorship all about putting together training programs. And so it's been fun also to kind of track where I can make improvements based on that curriculum, and also translate that now to an online platform that'll be launching in the next couple of months. And so, I think all those pieces were really important. But I always think back to I think it was maybe March of 20, and I had entered into a partnership with another group, and it backfired. I needed to get out. And I remember thinking,
they were going to do your marketing too. I remember you're like,
they were going to do my marketing. They were going to host it. They were my list, right? Because I had this, this business that had no list. I just had friends and contacts, whatever, right? And I needed out of it. And I remember thinking, I want to quit. I just don't want to do it at all because it was such a frustrating experience and just so demoralizing. And I had said to this group of peers and to you that I was doing the thing, right? And so there was this accountability piece that was like, you can't quit. You said it out loud. You have to keep going. And the funny thing is, and maybe just like February and March are not my months, but I'm going through something very similar now, right? Where it's like, this is hard. Like this online platform is hard and it's hard to do in this particular moment. But I am someone who does the things I say I'm going to do. And when I say them to a group of people, it really helps me to just keep going, put one foot in front of the other until things clear, until there is sun again in St. Louis. And I feel like I'm back and able to move forward again without feeling panicked and stressed and all the rest.
And yeah, I love that accountability too, because it's so funny. You're like, as soon as you say it, and then you'll come into coaching sometimes, you'll be like, yeah, I don't know. And I'm like, you said it, or are we moving forward, or why would you do it? And then you're like, okay, Holly, fine. So it's that tough love coaching. And
it's a safe space to be both, to express both, right? It's a safe space to be like, I want to do this thing. Also, am I really going to do this thing? Right? Like we can hold both of those things without it being catastrophized or just saying, yeah, go ahead, quit, right? Like it's neither of those things. There's space to just exist in frustration or limbo or whatever. And everybody gets it, right? Because, and I've heard this before, but like the moment you feel like you want to burn your business to the ground is like the moment before this expansion happens, right? It's this moment before your own limits go up, right? And your own threshold or your own ceiling is now higher. But in that moment, it's hard.
It's hard. And it's hard if you don't have the support where you can come. And like you said, you can actually say things like that. Like, I feel like burning my business to the ground. And people lovingly like support and get you through that too, right? That spot. And that's so funny, Fielding, because I actually have an email I just drafted for next week. And the subject line is, I want to burn my business to the ground in quotation marks, to talk about that frustration of people right now. So yeah, it is a feeling, and it's a feeling all entrepreneurs have, but you're right. It's that cusp, right? So I'm excited for what's in store for you, because I know you're going to do you got your beta program coming out. You have, your online training. I think it's amazing. I think stepping into that space and filling a void, especially when there's not a lot on that, is super, super good. And especially with all of what you bring to the table with that, right? Like you have your own process and way of reviewing grants, of looking at grants, of writing grants, and of pricing that is very unique to you. And I let people, as soon as you start talking about it in the coaching calls or in the Slack, like people are asking questions up and down, and you are very, happy to share. They're very interested in that. So I think that this course that you've developed is so good, right? Not just the information that people are going to take away, but because of how you operate and your uniqueness and your compassion, I think is going to really translate well. So I'm really excited for you on that.
I'm excited too. And one of the most fruitful pieces for me in the dialogue back and forth with you about this course is like getting really clear on who it is I want to serve, right? Mm-hmm. Like who is this product truly intended for? And I often go back to some of the planning documents you have given us, and I'm constantly in my head, I'm like, it's for everyone. But the reality is I have a deep passion, right, for organizations that have been excluded either intentionally or unintentionally from the federal process. And I have developed this platform for them, right? And the first component is this education piece, but it's not going to stop there, right? Like I really imagine this being a platform full of tools and resources and hopefully some AI integrated stuff, right? To really help those organizations cross the threshold between I don't even know what I'm looking at in grants.gov to submitting a competitive application and for them to feel like confident, right? That it is they're in the right place. They can do this, right? So it's all, I mean, it's competence because it's education, but it's really confidence as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, and you're integrating that, on-demand platform, but plus with the live coaching. And I think that's so cool because, and I've done that as well because I've seen the power behind that, right? And I know that you're going to find that too, especially for those organizations that can digest information where they need it and when they can get to it, but also to be able to come and have that action, I think is really cool. And yeah, it's got to be like, it's funny because one of the things you mentioned, kind of like your hesitancy in marketing. And then we actually do a lot of marketing talk in the mentorship. We do a lot of it in different ways. So we can talk about it, like you mentioned, a lot of grant writers, they are able to easily find clients for their business, but we talk about how you scale and now you want to go online and develop and all of the things. And that's a different business. That's an online business versus a service business. They are two completely different things. So we do talk about that a lot and how to do that. So has that been like what's kind of attracted you to the mentorship too, that it's a different type of program than other ones out there because it has this kind of service and online plus grant focus? Like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so sort of two things. So this is my second year. Right. And so I think I knew that at the end of my first year. And that was part of the reason I stayed on for that second year was like, oh, I'm going to take this online. Holly knows all about taking things online, number one. But number two, you are so generous with the knowledge you share with us about sort of the behind the scenes in your business. So yes, it's about grant consulting businesses, right? But also I know that I can just in a coaching call say, hey, Holly, there's this weird piece over here and I don't know how to make my systems connect. And you may not know the answer, but you often have a methodology to get to an answer. And that has been very reassuring. It was certainly part of my decision to stay for a second year. Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. And let's just talk about like results too. Like you've been getting financial results in your business. So what has really been the key that has helped in that area as well?
So some of it is just accountability. So some of it in, in October, I think of 23 when I joined, as soon as I joined, I restructured my pricing. Like I hadn't even attended anything yet. I was just like, I know this is what I'm going to have to do. So now I have to do it. Like I might as well just get ahead of it. Right. So I restructured my pricing. I restructured the way that I was contracting with clients. And it made a big difference in terms of workflow. It made a big difference in terms of like, try not to do a different thing for every single client. Now, all of my clients get me. All of my clients get the same approach and strategy, but I was doing different things for every single client. And it was just a bit of a brain drain, frankly, to keep track of all the different structures of contracts and whatever. So some of it was streamlining that process. Some of it was rethinking how I was charging for the services and putting value to those things that are hard. So for example, I do tons of federal research for year-round clients, right? Every day I'm getting an email from grants.gov and I'm reading through all of the different opportunities that have been announced. How do I account for that with my clients? And before it was like just a random estimation of like, well, I found one this month, right? Or like, I read through it, but, was it for this client? Was it for this client? Like, how do I bill for that? So I came up with what feels like a more fair structure, both for them and for me, which just gets rid of sort of the nitpicky, like, I spent 5 minutes reading this one and I spent an hour and 20 minutes reading this one. And I was looking for this client, but I found one for this client. I mean, it's just madness, right? And so rethinking how billing worked, rethinking just the structure of those contracts was key. So comparing calendar years 23 to 24, I did double my revenue. That also included launching the class, right? And so that was a new income stream for me. Was a ton of work, so much work. Yeah. But it has set me up now to launch this thing online, right? Because I have the curriculum developed and I have feedback from students on what worked and where I can make things even better and rave reviews, right? So I can use that in marketing and, because I got to keep putting that hat on of like, how do I use this stuff to let others know that it It's a quality education, and it got people where they wanted to go.
Yeah.
So
I love it. I love it so much. And then even going into this year and looking at, okay, now my business is set up and I have these different streams of income, right? And I can look at it in a different way. I love that so much. I mean, you definitely got your investment back, your financial investment. And by doubling your revenue in 1 year, that's our offer promise. And that's what we really try to hone down is how can we do that? And with every single person, and a lot of the focus is systems, as you mentioned. Sometimes it's just streamlining things. Sometimes it's just changing up your pricing. Can be very simple, right? But then what comes with that is, well, how do I approach this client that's been like this for years? Or, you know what I mean? I've been billing like this or have this relationship. So it's having those conversations and restructuring. And then, of course, just like having the accountability. I love that so much, Fielding, that's been so helpful for you. Because I'm like that too. I like write down something and I'm like, I'm going to do this thing. And then I got to do it, right? So I have a lot of internal accountability, but there's something about when I say it external, then my internal can kind of align with that. Is that kind of where you're at too? I kind of feel like we're similar in that way.
yeah, absolutely. There's just a little bit more pressure saying it out loud to a group. It's not that I do things that I wouldn't otherwise do or whatever, right? There's just, it's accountability. And honestly, it's the cheerleading, right? This is the community that is created because we are celebrating wins so often. We get to say like, hey, maybe it's a win. Maybe I'm just like announcing something, right? But it's like, I'm going to do this thing. I'm committed to doing this thing. Or, no, I said I was going to do this thing and I did the thing, right?
Yeah.
And so there's also just this opportunity to cheerlead one another along through what can feel sloggy sometimes, right? Like running a business is fun and it gives you freedom, but it's also challenging and hard, and to have a group of people who are doing similar things in their business, similarly challenging things anyway in their business, we know that it helps to have someone else celebrate with us. So it's a huge benefit.
I love that. And I see you guys even I love it when y'all doing each other's newsletter, because you're doing these new things and putting these things, and it can feel like crickets online. Like, let's be real. Like, it can, when you're new and trying to build that list from zero up, and it's like, okay, how do we do this? And then people joining each other's webinars or doing the things and sharing it, and just being that celebratory, oh yeah, I could actually learn from you too. And, having that. And I think it's so cool to see that as well. In real life, how you guys were supporting each other, and not just inside the community, but also actually signing up to each other's newsletters, attending each other's webinars, maybe signing up for each other's things, right? So I think that's really, really cool as well. So I love this. Thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else that you really want to share that other people in your position, maybe like a federal grant writer right now? Maybe I do feel like I'm burning my business to the ground right now, but any kind of way of saying, this could be helpful for you, the mentorship, this is how it helped me or whatnot. So just any kind of other words of wisdom for someone in your similar situation.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is about community. Part of it is about feeling like you have a strategy to move forward in the way that you want to move forward, right? Because I think where so many of us get lost when we are solopreneurs, we have affinity groups, right? Locally, nationally, but to be in a space where you are challenged to do things like quarterly planning or annual planning, or again, that accountability piece of hey, I've been doing this thing for a long time and I don't know that I want to do it anymore. Or, hey, what are you all doing that I'm not doing that I could consider doing, right? Because you're seeing how other people have structured their businesses. And there's some super innovative people in this group, right? Doing really different things. It's not all a standard, there's no standard business, I would say. So even sometimes just gathering ideas, right? Someone shared this incredible launch page and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this launch page, right? Sent it to one of my contractors, hey, check this out, right? So there's sharing and ideas. And my business, just for all of those out there that have federal grant writing businesses, you are not alone. My revenue has tanked in the last 2 months. And so the other piece I would just say, I apparently have a lot of other things to say, but the other big piece is you do financial planning, right? There are financial planning tools and thought processes on how to set yourself up so that when in December of 24, you've had a flagship year that come January and February and March, when your revenue is 1/4 what it has been, that you're going to be able to stay open. You're going to be able to pay your contractors. You're going to be able to keep going. You're going to set yourself up so that when federal grants are back, you still have a business, right? So there is no bad time to do this work, right? But I think anytime you're under stress, that's the moment to ask for help. That's the moment when you need to rally a support around you. And certainly the mentorship has been that.
Thank you so much. And yeah, and I love that you're being vulnerable and sharing that, because a lot of folks, and I've been hearing this. I just went to a group the other day where it was a lot of the largest grant writing agencies in the nation came together, and they were chatting and just sharing, and federal grant focused areas, there's a lot going on. They're getting hit, right? Because their clients aren't wanting to apply for grants right now. And we're seeing that.
Or there aren't any to apply for.
Exactly. And these are external threats. Like if you're doing a SWAT, right? That's an external threat. Like that's happening. So I love that you've been able, and I know you mentioned this in Slack the other day, I think it was Slack. And then you said, what's been really helpful was paying yourself, because someone else, we did coach about how to pay yourself and how to manage your money. So then you can be set, like we actually put you in a situation, put 3 to 6 months aside that can pay your business and everything, because you never know. And now you're in that situation because you followed the process, and you said, I started paying myself while I was in here. I didn't do that before. Like obviously you guys pay yourselves, but it's usually you just take whatever's left over, and we have variable income every month. But now I said pay yourself a set amount every month. So have you been able to continue to pay yourself even throughout these months where you said you've been getting less?
Yes. And I know when I run out of money. So I'm keeping an eye. I mean, it's an important metric, right? What is my runway? How do if I want to maintain payments for myself and for my contractors, which I do, I'm very committed to that. When do I run out of money? Right? And what does that mean? What do I do then? And so these are all scenario planning that I'm doing and that nonprofits are doing right now, right? Around federally funded programs. Like these are all businesses, and we all have to pay attention to runway and hit those revenue goals. And so, but yes, I mean, being able to have enough money in a business account, and I've been able to pay myself. I've been able to keep my contractors on. I've kind of looking at that runway, because I have made a promise to my contractors that I will give them 2 full months before I have to cut their hours, right? And so I want them to know 2 months in advance if that's going to happen. And we're all sort of paying attention. I'm very transparent in my business practices with my contractors. And, I ultimately will have to make hard decisions if federal grants don't come back online. But I don't have to make that decision under extreme duress, right? I don't have to make it immediately. I don't have to decide whether I stop paying myself, or I can make that decision if I need to, but I'm not forced to do that, which is a very comfortable seat to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that, because even when your business is doing well is when you should join programs like this. So you can be in the situation that Fielding is in right now as well. But even if you're like, but Holly, I wasn't prepared for this. This isn't the time. We can still help you come up with a plan so you are feeling more financially secure. And I think that's so important. Like for me as a business owner to feel and be financially secure, because we went through COVID, things happen. Now we're going through this, like things happen that are out of our control, and we need to be in that position where we have that financial security and stability so we can make wise and neutral decisions, right? That aren't super emotional at the last minute. You're just gut wrenching, and they're going to be a bit anyway sometimes, but at least you can come from a different place of peace in a way. And I think that's so, so important. So thank you for sharing that, because I did remember you had mentioned that the other day. I was like, oh yeah, that's another thing we do in the mentorship is we really focus on managing your money and how to pay yourself consistently, no matter what your variable income is every single month, instead of just paying the leftovers. And that's a game changer to run a business, right? A game changer. So
absolutely.
So good. Yeah. So good. Yeah. So where can people find you, Fielding? Where can they go online to find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active, pretty politically active on LinkedIn. So join the fray, but also at jezreelconsulting.com. And I have a beta launch of a federal grants course that will be launching in July. Registrations, I think, actually start soon. So it's the 3rd of March.
They'll be open soon.
They'll be open. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but they might be closed if you're listening to this way in the future. But yeah, in 2025, definitely get on that list. I know you have a beta program open. It is amazing. It is such a good price. And you get that one-on-one kind of more feedback, as well as a beta person that takes the course. I love doing beta launches. I love being a beta person to like get that extra kind of touch. So it's going to be good. It's all about federal grants. What will people take away from that training as well?
It's the foundation you need to be successful in federal. My own experiences across so many agencies. I think I've had successful proposals with over a dozen funding agencies. So really broad experience. So I bring all of that and try to distill it into like, what are the foundational themes you really need to understand? So give you that foundation knowledge, but then really working on that confidence, right? So giving you really specific tools to go back to your organization or go back to your clients and say, hey, these are the things we have to figure out before we're ready.
Yeah, and this is so good. And even if y'all are like, well, no, there are federal grants, there's going to be. And even if you take that away, and even if you didn't apply for a federal grant, let's say even if you never apply for a federal grant after that, you would learn the process of how to put together a program that can be evaluated, that can, like, even for your own organization. And just being able to focus down and understand how to do that is like, that's what I always say about grants. Even if the one you write never gets awarded, like the work that goes into developing it is creating a business plan, right? And it is creating a very clear business plan for a program or just for your organization at large. And that's like, it's amazing, right? Because you can apply that to fundraising strategies, individual donor strategies, anything, because now you actually have like, what are you doing? How are you going to measure it? How many, people are you going to serve potentially, that kind of thing? How much money, getting clear on the budget, understanding those types of things are key. Those are questions people want to know, right? And those are things that you can very clearly communicate, that the impact that you're going to have. If you just write kind of like, give us money, like, no, like, no, right? But writing a federal grant, because it's so specific, like, and it is such a specific design, I guess I should say, because they're all a little different, but you have that framework that is consistent, as we mentioned, across agencies. It is just right, chef's kiss. Like, it is amazing. You're gonna want it.
Yep. I mean, you're more competitive for state. You're more competitive for really any public funding, national, foundations. Like, they're looking for a lot of the very same components and ingredients that go into a federal grant. So to me, it's sort of it's federal, but it's advanced, right? It's a way to continue to improve your knowledge and skills as a writer.
Yep. Awesome. All right, so they can all find the information. We'll have the show links as well. You'll be able to find it on Fielding's website. Definitely check her out on LinkedIn. You do post amazing stuff on LinkedIn that I'm always reposting. So definitely go there, especially if you're a federal grant writer and in the space and cost area that Fielding mentioned that she's in. So you'll definitely want to check that out. Thank you so much again for coming on and talking about your experience in the Grand Professional Mentorship. And we'll see you back inside.
Awesome. Thanks, Holly.